Hey folks, welcome to live weekday Patreon show. Hey, let's get this thing started, huh? Well, all right, everyone. It's not like I can surprise everyone and say, hey, guess what? Kyle Rittenhouse was acquitted today. Not only was he acquitted, but acquitted on all charges. What we were is we did have a man on the scene, though. A member of the Prepared Mind Network was there at the Kenosha, Wisconsin headquarters. And it was, of course, my brother Jim, who blends in. You know, there's a lot of those Swedish types up there in Wisconsin where they say words like Kenosha with a nice Swedish accent. So yeah, he's up there blending in, but he sent us a report. We might as well just play it and then get on with the rest of our SHTF business, right? We got a lot of business to cover, folks, not just Kyle Rittenhouse, but we made it to the weekend and I have my monologue. You guys get questions. It is a Patreon show. It is a Q&A show, and we'll get to what you want. So write your questions down, get them into Jolene. Let's talk about them. But for now, let's see what Jim has to say, and then we'll get on with it.
Well, hello, Prepared Mind Network. This is Jim on the spot reporting for the Prepared Mind Network, and we're outside the Kenosha courthouse waiting for the verdict to come. It looks like they're going to finally let us know what is happening in the Kyle Rittenhouse murder or the Kyle Rittenhouse self-defense case. I guess we're going to find out. And they're coming out, and it sounds like not guilty. Well, folks, big news, good news. The Second Amendment stands, freedom stands. God bless America. Back to you, John.
Well, that wasn't quite a live report, as you know. It was just a short while ago. But he put that together, and thank you, Jim, for risking your life going up there. And really, folks, it was a nail biter. In fact, I may as well just cover some of the opinions I have regarding the trial. You've heard a lot of them in the last few days that it should have been declared a mistrial with prejudice. It was a malicious prosecution. They withheld evidence in the discovery phase. They did not play clean. They violated just a lot of common decency and rules. I think that they should be sanctioned, if not prosecuted, for what they did. But, you know, be that as it may, Kyle Rittenhouse stood up like the young man he is. And folks, it's important to remember he's not a legal adult. He's still just a kid in a lot of ways. But we saw a level of maturity out of the kid that was commendable. And it was also commendable his sacrifice that he performed in Kenosha back during the riots. He was there scrubbing graffiti, cleaning things, helping people, as well as protecting the town. He was a very civic-minded young man. He wasn't some lunatic. He wasn't a criminal like the 3 people he shot. You know, he's not a bad person. He was actually a volunteer. His dad lived in Kenosha. Yeah, his mom lived in Illinois, and his dad in Kenosha. It's not like he was going there looking for trouble. I believe he was an EMT paramedic and had a lot to do with the fire department as a volunteer. Sounds like your typical red-blooded, warm-hearted, good American who apparently doesn't like communists or being, chased down, kicked in the head, beat with a skateboard, and have a fucking pistol pointed at him. And who knows what other threats the kid suffered through. Anyways, he stood up for his verdict. And he made it through the first one, the first not guilty. And after that, he started getting the tremors and the shakes. And after the final verdict of not guilty was read, basically collapsed. And it was interesting that the camera changed views. and that they didn't want to show him losing his shit there for a few minutes. All in all, just a very brave kid for doing what he did. Fortunately, the jury did find him not guilty. There was a lot of concern over the jury foreman taking the judge's instructions in written form home for the night last night. There was a lot of concern about that. Additionally, long deliberations typically, from what I've seen and read, mean that they're going to take the charges and figure out what can be applied if they don't want to give them the maximum level of guilt. But they found not guilty on all charges. That is going to go a long way in helping Kyle if anyone attempts to sue him civilly. And expect that, folks, civil cases coming towards Kyle. And in fact, I believe Nicholas Sandman, who is the young white male who was in Washington, D.C., who had the radical Native American get up in his face, and they were banging drums and other things trying to get him to respond in a negative fashion, and he didn't. But the media, excoriated and called him a racist and attacked him, and he went and sued them, the mainstream media, I think to the tune of $200 million. And who knows how much of that his attorneys got. But it looks like Kyle Rittenhouse is going to be able to sue because he has been called a murderer. In fact, after he was acquitted, he is being called a murderer still. Unbelievable what is going on, folks. Yes, we do live in an idiocracy. And if you have half a brain or more, you're going to feel a little funny. You're going to feel a little pinch, a little twinge in having to deal with these people in our world now. It's almost like there's two planets and they've all been smashed together, right? And we're having to deal with these idiots. Be that as it may. Another thing was earlier today, Matt Gaetz, representative out of the great state of Florida, Matt Gaetz, went a little bit funny, and he made a recommendation. And it was, I wanted to cover it here. And we'll get to it. Here it is, right? Well, Matt Gaetz went on, I'll just start with that. He went on TV and said, we don't demonstrate our worth by 8-hour speeches that don't change outcomes. He was basically going after McCarthy, who, flustered and blustered and blew his lips, but didn't change anything. They did pass the super duper multi-trillion-dollar Build Back Better communist program. That's right, it made it through the House. So I think we need a change of leadership. We'll get into that a little bit more here. But Matt Gaetz said, you know what? And I think this is freaking hilarious. He said that he should bring Kyle Rittenhouse to Washington, D.C. as an intern. Can you imagine the outrage, the roar of the roar of discontent that would come from people like AOC, who would feel threatened by a white male, young guy, right? Patriotic guy in Congress. Right? It's bad enough that Representative Boebert appeared on TV with 2 AR-15s behind her desk in Colorado, and the fact that she carries concealed. Who knows what she has? Probably a little Ladysmith 9mm. She's kind of a small person, but she don't mess around. I've also seen her with a big-ass pistol on her hip. Right? That's scary enough. But to have Kyle Rittenhouse, who's actually pulled the trigger in self-defense, hit 3, the Kenosha hat trick, killed 2 violent criminals, blew the bicep off of a 3rd violent criminal. And by violent criminal, folks, I'm not talking about the crimes they were committing at the time, but the fact that they've been arrested and prosecuted. And I think just days before his testimony, Gage, the guy who just had his bicep blown off by Kyle Rittenhouse, his DUI charges were dropped. he committed some crimes, and his crimes were just wiped off, and then magically appears on the stand for the defense. And maybe when the prosecutor, who had his head in his hands, like, I can't believe this Gage guy just said that. Maybe it's because, he testified the wrong way on purpose. A lot of people think that he was coached to lie and mislead, but I think that he's a good, honest communist missing his arm now. I think that he told the truth, and he did, and everyone knew it and saw it. That was the moment where everyone realized, the odds just got much better for Kyle. We got to see exactly what a bunch of shitheels the prosecutors are up there in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Wow. So yeah, Matt Gaetz, he ought to bring Kyle Rittenhouse into Washington, D.C. As long as the D.C. police won't arrest him for trespassing in the Capitol building, make sure he gets a hall pass there, if you will, Matt Gaetz. Anyways, it's incredible. And folks, this case has absolutely nothing to do with race, by the way. This case was about self-defense. It was about the Second Amendment, right? The right to keep and bear arms. Bearing arms, not for parades, not bearing arms only in the military, not bearing arms while you're hunting, but bearing arms at all times. In fact, a lot of really interesting things have been said, and I really want to get to this, right? You're going to dig the shit out of this. I sent it to our good buddy Vaughn at Backcountry Preps, who was doing some live broadcasting, but I want to cover it here, right? Madison Cawthorn, Representative Madison Cawthorn, has joined Matt Gaetz in offering Kyle Rittenhouse an internship. And this is what he said, folks. I'm going to give you the whole quote, not the short. This was his tweet, right? He says, Madison Cawthorn offered him a says he isn't guilty. And Madison Cawthorn in his video tells followers to also, quote, be armed and dangerous. What does he mean by that, folks? It's incredible. Everyone is just ecstatic over this. The fact that the Second Amendment has been exonerated, the right to self-defense, the fact that the video coverage of this was adequate enough to be used in his defense. What the FBI produced wasn't a doctored video showing Rittenhouse running loose through the streets, shooting people, a ridiculous fashion. Interesting still that they had that evidence and withheld it, the FBI did. But there's still people right now, folks, who think this is about race, this case. It's not about race. The three guys, the Kenosha hat trick targets, they were all white. Kyle was white. Unbelievable, folks. But that isn't stopping communist Democrat Cori Bush, who is African-American female, I think. I don't know what she identifies as. That's just kind of what I see with my white male eyes. Anyway, she's also a hypocrite and a moron. Regarding the Rittenhouse verdict, she says, quote, the judge, the jury, the defendant. It's white supremacy in action. What the fuck? It's literally, I mean, this is what we got. She's actually a Democrat representative, folks. Actually a Democrat representative, and turns it into a race issue. It's not a race issue. It's a self-defense issue. Incredible, though, folks. Now, Representative Espaillat, if I said that right, had this to say, and I have a funny feeling that he's a Democrat also. He says, Kyle Rittenhouse, he says this in a tweet, Kyle Rittenhouse is living proof that white tears can still forestall justice. And goes on to tweet, a murderer is once again walking free today. Our system is terribly broken. Are you fucking kidding me, mister? Are you that dumb? You're that dumb, aren't you? Really? And people voted for this dumbass, folks. And this dumbass has the right to vote granted to him, right? He's voting the proxy of thousands and thousands of people, has no idea what actually happened. White tears. Unbelievable, folks. But your right to self-defense, it was on trial. Your right to keep and bear arms, it was on trial. Your right to stand up and defend yourself and defend others was on trial, and it's been upheld. We'll see what happens tonight and this weekend. I don't think that in Republican areas, Republican states, Republican counties, there's going to be a whole lot of trouble, but I bet they're going to have some trouble in Kenosha. Now, Jolene just sent me a message, something that's come through here, and it must be important. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been sent. Well, what I can't do is I can't transfer YouTube videos onto the screen here because it's from Rakamaru. I can't do that because they might say that I'm stealing someone else's material. I have to be very careful with what's going on, but thank you, Rakamaru. Hopefully, Jolene can put your video link in celebration of Kyle Rittenhouse being acquitted. Maybe we can put that in the comments section. But yeah, it is big news coming out today, folks. But guess what? All the problems are still there. We just happen to have a little more Second Amendment evidence in our side of the balance sheet. The balance sheet. Now, as you know, we the people, we need to understand that we're supposed to give up our rights. You know, there's a misconception on our side, apparently, about the Constitution, common law, the Declaration of Independence, our inalienable rights. Apparently, we've got that wrong. So, very quickly.
And not just to think about, well, my freedom is being kind of disturbed here. No, screw your freedom.
There comes a time when you do have to give up what you consider your individual right of making your own decision. There comes a time when you do have to give up what you consider your individual right of making your own decision.
Yeah, that's going to happen. Folks, what I want to give you here is a set of facts. The European Medicines Agency released some data. I am not arguing with the statements, medical opinions, or expert coming out of the world, but this is a couple of things. It's the number of reactions and the number of fatalities. It was released by the European Medicines Agency, and they are saying that 1,163,356 adverse reactions were reported and 30,551 fatalities. I don't have anything else to say other than those numbers. But there comes a time, there comes a time when you need to give up your rights and just do as you're told, because numbers don't lie. All right, moving on. Oh, treasonous Biden. Folks, is it treason? I don't know. The Biden administration has paid $144 million to the Taliban. Unbelievable. The military gets shit pay. Veterans get crap Veterans Administration medical care, or none at all. And Biden gives terrorists cash. None of this makes any sense. Is that treason? Is that malfeasance of office? Is it just being mean and stupid? I don't know. But today, there was a peaceful transfer of power. I don't know if you're aware of that. A lot of things happened today. They passed the Build Back Better Biden's boner and bunghole. They passed that. And speaking of Biden's bunghole, yeah, there was a transfer of power. He apparently is, because I haven't heard if he's woken up yet, undergoing a medical examination of his colon, probably to find out, what is going on there. He seems to be dropping a load every 5 minutes and then crop dusting everyone he walks near. Anyways, yeah, he's getting a colonoscopy. And since he was under medical anesthesia, Kamala, that's right, folks, Queen Kamala became president, acting president, and may still, for all I know. This would be interesting, transfer of power to Kamala. Speaker of the House is still Speaker of the House, but acts as the Vice President. I guess that's how that goes. Kind of some fishy stuff, especially considering this week, folks. Oh yeah, shit has hit the fan. Especially interesting considering Kamala has had some of her staff quit. Just quit. Poof, gone, because there's too much infighting between Biden and Biden's cabinet and Kamala's. I don't know if she actually has a cabinet, but her workers don't like her. They don't like what's going on. One of the most the literal least appreciated, least liked, least popular vice president in the history of the nation is acting as president. The cackling, nonsensical, right? It's Kamala, president. It could happen. Be careful. Be careful. I don't know who would be worse, her or Nancy. Good golly. Folks, the fight goes on. I just read you some Survey-Bug numbers, some Jim Jones Kool-Aid facts. But in New York, the fight is still going on. Nothing changed, folks. Biden's got a snake up his ass. Kyle Rittenhouse is breathing the air that a free man breathes. And in New York, they're getting ready for a massive mandate protest tomorrow, this weekend. And the question I have, and this question I can ask you as well, is, would you stay and fight? Should the people of New York and New York City stay and fight? Or should they abandon ship? Now, I know that down south, we're getting a lot of people from the north coming down saying, fuck it, we quit. And, the people that typically quit are those who are the most productive, saying, I don't like this work environment. I'm not going to hang around for it anymore. And we got a lot of numbers this week on people who are objecting, absolutely objecting to the Jim Jones jab. They don't want the Jim Jones juice. They're objecting to it. What is it? 40% of TSA workers, 30% of police officers, 30% of hospital workers. It's incredible. I was listening to Backcountry Preps as I went from the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict, getting ready for the show here. And he was saying, man, you would think that if we would all just stand up and there were more numbers. I actually think, Vaughn, as if I were addressing you directly, I actually think the numbers are astoundingly high. And I'm going to go at it from this perspective. Take our country, the United States of America. It has, we're just going to throw this number out there, 40% Republicans, 40% Democrats, and about 20% independent, or rather people that can't make their fucking minds up, okay? Okay, so let's just take the 40% of Democrats. They all went and got the shot. Done. There's 40% of the country right there. And then you take the 20% of independents, and they're pretty wishy-washy in my opinion. So let's take them and just slide them right over to the Democrat side. There's your 60% with 40% saying no thank you, or in some cases, let's go Brandon with regard to the mandate. there it is, 30% of doctors. I mean, there are Republicans who have gone out and gotten the Jim Jones juice because they're old or elderly, or they believe in medicine. Whatever their decision is, it was theirs. And a lot of people have been bullied. And I'm sure there are Democrats, and I'm sure there are independents out there. And by independent, I don't mean libertarian folks. I mean people who literally are trying to. It's like they're hanging on, like they're hanging onto the cliff over here with the Democrats, and they're hanging on to the cliff over here with Republicans, and they're like stretch arms strong, and their arms are getting stretched as the two sides move apart. The Democrats are still. It used to be thread the needle between the two parties, No, now it's hanging on to both sides for dear life, trying to figure out how to survive. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable what's going on. But the people, I think, who have a brain and are willing to stand up for themselves, I think that is a good number. 30 to 40% is very good. Now, we're not done. We aren't in the Revolutionary War. And remember, folks, during the Revolutionary War, 3% of the people actually actively fought, but about 17%, roughly 17%, supported them in one way or another, monetarily, with food, shelter, clothing. Oh yeah, all of those prepping things. Yeah. So the fact that we have 30 to 40% of people out there saying no thank you, to me, that's pretty good evidence that Americans are willing to stand up for themselves. And as usual, I would say they haven't been pushed so far that they're willing to fight it out yet. I don't think we're there. I think that some of those northern cities are going to be the first ones to go poof up in smoke. And in fact, Kenosha-geddon, that little town up there, the Bible got it wrong. They called it Armageddon, but it's actually Kenosha-geddon. It's probably going to be where this all kicks off. It's very interesting. Now, since I got sucked back into Kenosha, I wanted to read this. There was an article about, the two guys that got killed by Kyle Rittenhouse. They were actually filmed together moments before all of this happened. I wonder what their attitude was and what they were conspiring to do. I love how they try understanding the prosecutors. They try saying they know what Kyle's motive was. He was there to kill people. That's just incredible. But yeah, the criminals, they were doing something. But never mind the article about the two BLM criminals. I read this person, and his name was Let's Go Brandon. That was the French. Let's go Brandon. Let's go Brandon. He had this to write, and I thought it was brilliant, and I want to give him some credit for it. He says, just think, the same ones who think that a 17-year-old shouldn't have a gun also think that a 16-year-old is mature enough to vote, and that a 14-year-old can get an abortion without parental consent, and that a 3-year-old is mature enough to decide their own gender. Let's go, Brandon. Very smart. Folks, there's a lot of smart people in this country. There's a lot of people that are well-informed. There's a lot of people that think on their own. And again, the other day, I really got into some thinking philosophy with you guys, had a good time with that. There's a lot of people that think. There's a lot of good Americans out here. I would refer you to John Paul Jones and say, we've lost a lot, folks. The bureaucracy, the elected officials. Washington, D.C. is more than a swamp. It's a frickin' sewer, and it's chock full of turds. But I would say that the American people have yet to begin to fight back politically with what's going on. Dr. Atlas, who was President Trump's doctor, right? He was the doctor in the White House, not Dr. Fauci, not Dr. Doom, no, Dr. Scott Atlas was. And he says there's no reason for young adults to get ding, ding, ding. He continues and says this is really denial of science. Folks, we have two sides here, right? We have our side, and then we have our opponent, our adversaries. This is now the America we live in, folks. This is no longer we're all American and we're going to work this shit out. They're picking sides. You should have heard the people calling for violence. all of the incredible insults that are hurled on a daily basis. It's pretty sad in a lot of ways, but I think that the time has come for us to realize that, with the exception of really kind-hearted people, for the most part, everyone's chosen sides, and they're willing to see the other side, shall we say. I mean, how do we put this? I'm not glamorizing or calling for violence or call to action or recommend anything harmful or dangerous, but it seems like a lot of the lefties out there are continuously saying that they want to see us die and that we should leave the country. And I keep thinking, well, isn't this country, it was founded on the idea of individual freedom, individual liberty, and restricted government. It sounds like maybe we should have our country back and maybe they should go live in China. Just a thought. But here we are at the halfway point, folks. And what I want to do is get to the Q&A with you. It is the end of the week. It makes that the weekend. It's absolutely the weekend. And I want to hear what you guys have to say, whether it's a question, a comment, a statement, an accusation, whether you all want to tell me whatever the fuck it is you want to tell me. I'm ready to hear it.
Are you ready?
Well, here we are. We're back. Sometimes the streaming doesn't work on my end. I guess sometimes the bunker's a little too deep for the signal to get out. Anyways, we've got Charlene T checks in with the prepared mother. That would be Jolene. And she has this to say: my mom had a headache, no other symptoms, and was going to get tested for cerveza bug just in case. This is an example of how they have brainwashed the sheep. Yeah, and in fact, it's very interesting. Yeah, we're supposed to believe that anytime we don't feel 100%, it could be the cerveza bug. After, folks, get this, in March it'll be 2 full years, but it's well over a year and a half. And let me put it to you this way: wouldn't you say that most of 2020 we spent being told that we were supposed to be afraid of cerveza bug? We're at the end of 2021. So I like to say 2 fucking years. 2 years. We've been putting up with all of this brainwashing, this propaganda campaign, and it's not going to go away. What was it? I had this sneezes. Remember what I mean? I got this these allergies for like a couple of weeks, and it started off pretty low, and then I started sneezing, and I had a really bad sneezy day. And then poof, it went away. It came back down pretty quick. And I had a few people ask, "Hey man, is that you got cerveza bug?" I was like, no, it's just allergies. But yeah, one day I rubbed one of my eyes raw. My face got rubbed raw and was sneezing all over the place. But this really aren't cerveza bug symptoms. But that's the first thing people think when you start sneezing. Ashes to ashes, we all fall down. In fact, that's what that was about. Bring around the rosy pocket full of posies, ashes, ashes, we all fall down. That was a children's nursery rhyme that was created during the bubonic plague. The bubonic plague that was spreading, people were falling over and dying then. If you started sneezing, that's when they started saying, "God bless you," because sneezing was an early symptom of the bubonic plague, the Black Plague, and look out. Hygiene wasn't really important to them back then. They didn't have toilet paper being marketed by soft fuzzy bears on television. In fact, I heard they didn't even have television back then. All right, we got Steve, USMC. Hey, Steve, Semper Fi to you, brother. I hope you're doing well. He says, I watched the whole trial from day one. He's talking about the Rittenhouse trial, not the OJ trial. More on that later if we want to talk about the OJ trial. Anyways, back to Steve's comment. He says, I watched the whole trial from day one. I learned so much about the law. The verdict was the only one that any sane person could have. There is still hope for the United States of America. Steve, I hope you are correct. You learned a lot about courtroom procedure. Right? You and I, we were all born understanding the law. We're taught morality by our parents, but we know the law. Even thieves know that stealing is wrong, folks. Criminals know that child molesters need to be taken care of. We're all born with the law. It's nature's law. It's around us all the time, right? If you slip, you're going to fall. Water runs downhill. Fire burns the shit out of you. We figured those things out pretty quick. That's the law. And yeah, courtroom procedure. It was really, it was an interesting case. And I'm glad you watched all of it, Steve. I got quite an education back in the 90s during the OJ trial. In fact, I watched a lot of that, or listened to a lot of that while working on a house. The contractor wanted to hear it, and the other construction dudes wanted to hear it, and we were doing this huge remodel. Anyways, the judge, Lance Ito, I remember that name, right? Judge Lance Ito. And he had the cameras in the courtroom, and it was a big deal back then. You know, having cameras in the courtroom, watching it live, televising, because the interest level on it was so high. So thankfully that happened, and we got to see the Kyle Rittenhouse case live, as much of it as you could stomach. I tell you what, every time I turned it on and would spend a little bit of time listening to the prosecutors standing up there lying, misrepresenting facts, bullshitting. I hope you caught all of that too, Steve. I'm sure you did. But those are the type of guys that when we were children, we used to beat them up. You beat the hell out of guys like that. Someone would just stand there and bald-faced lie, make shit up, misrepresent stuff. You're like, look, pal, after class, I'm taking you out behind the fucking woodshed. I'm going to beat your ass. I mean, that's how we learn not to lie. That's how you learn not to do shit like that. You know, and then we grow up and the world has turned into some snowflake left-wing weirdo asylum where apparently lying is, lying like that is good, right? Destroying someone's life and credibility and ruining them forever, that's fine because, politics. Unbelievable. All right, we got FJP13 says, this weekend will be a real treat in many major cities. Get out and stay out. It's going to be interesting, no doubt, FJP, especially in Kenosha. It was interesting. The mainstream media does this quite a bit. They will take the camera and they will zoom in and focus on a crowd of people. And they'll make it appear and look like, by the way they report and the way the camera focuses, they want you to believe there's thousands of people there protesting. But when they pull that camera back, pull it back and widen the angle, there's only about 100 people there. 100 out of how many thousands and tens of thousands, or maybe even 100,000 people living in Kenosha. And this is a national case. National case, folks, think about it. A national case that we're supposed to believe, well, according to the media, is about race when it's not. They're trying to gin up a bunch of anger, violence out of the political leftists. They're useful tool idiots, Antifa and BLM. But there's only 100 people there. Now, maybe there's more as the sun starts to go down, right? People start going back to their homes. That's when these radical lunatic leftists start throwing bricks. I guess we're going to find out if bricks find their way through windows. A lot of businesses in Kenosha, by the way, have boarded their windows up as if they're in Miami, Florida, or Naples, Florida, or Key West. Look out, hurricane's coming. Nope, look out, stupid is coming. We'll see, though. I mean, if I was a betting man and I was wanting to have an easy bet, right? Easy money says they're going to riot. They're going to cause trouble. That's what the easy money would take that bet. I wouldn't bet either way. And I didn't want to bet on Kyle Rittenhouse's verdict. In fact, I don't think I ever put a prediction out there. I know by looking at the footage and examining the pictures and hearing the testimony, that's called evidence, I know that he was innocent of murder. He was defending himself, right? But I didn't predict what the verdict would be because That is that part of the equation that I always say is the most difficult to predict, the most difficult to plan for, and that is how other people behave. I talk about, if shit hits the fan, it goes Mad Max, like it did in 2020. You don't know what people are going to do. If they stop delivering food to the stores up in Kenosha or Chicago or Philadelphia or Seattle, Portland, any of these big cities, if they quit delivering food, people are going to go nuts and lose their mind, and then you don't know what people are going to do. That's the hardest, that's the big X factor, the hardest thing to predict, human behavior, because it's based on so many factors. Anyways, let us move on if we shall. We got more questions coming from you guys. Get your questions into Jolene. I've got a lot of stuff to talk about, but it's the end of the week, and I want to make sure we get to all of your thoughts before we take a couple of days off. But I will be back for the worldwide weekly wrap-up Uncensored, and I think I'll do something a little different. there for you. And then, of course, I'll be back on Sunday Night Live, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 3 p.m. Pacifico. And we'll do the regular, folks. On Sunday Night Live, show up, bring your beverages, sit your butt down, turn on the computer, and we're going to talk. We're going to see what happens this weekend. And, of course, all eyes on Rittenhouse. All eyes, I guess, on Joe Biden to see if he wakes up. And we're going to have a lot to talk about because, well, shit has hit the fan. It ain't going to get better. It is Thanksgiving week coming up. I have a lot to give thanks for, and I'll be thinking about those things as well. I think I'll do my Thanksgiving show as usual. I think I'll take Thanksgiving Day off. Just a little forewarning. But I'll definitely do a Thanksgiving show, maybe a Thanksgiving special. Once again, folks, it really makes the left-wing lunatics mad when we talk about Thanksgiving and all of those white settlers. Oops, I'm getting ahead of myself. Yes, I'm getting ahead of myself. Sunday Night Live, the zoo, be there, be ready. But right now, Latin American Preparedness says the prosecution used lies trying to convict Kyle that would likely come with a life sentence. Fortunately, cell phone video saved Kyle from conviction. Should we be getting video for our protection? The answer, I would say, is yes. If you think you're going to be in any scenario at any time, like, let's see, a protest. Now, what if the people that walked into the Capitol building on January 6th had cell phone footage where they walked up to the policeman and said, is it okay if I enter this public property, the Capitol building, made it obvious? And the policeman said, yes, you are allowed to enter. That would be fine evidence to tell the court and say, policeman told me I could go in. How can you charge me with trespassing? Well, incredible, right? But there were 14,000 hours of video footage from January 6th during the so-called insurrection. 14,000 hours that the Capitol Police refused to give Republicans who were investigating that. So we're going back to the comment there, Latin American Preparedness. Well, they will lie. Prosecutors will lie. Law enforcement, if they are rotten bastards, and that's a good percentage of them, will lie. They will make up stories, right? They'll get their stories straight with each other. They'll lie. This guy was lying his ass off, these prosecutors, trying to get Kyle Rittenhouse locked up for life. Life sentence, folks. Okay, a guy is defending himself from people who are threatening to kill him. We're going to kill you, motherfucker, right? Chasing him. He's trying to defend himself and be free. He's running away. He's trying to get out of the situation, and they're chasing him down. And if he doesn't protect himself, he dies. And then on the other hand, you've got a prosecutor that wants to put him in jail for life, prison, where he's probably going to be butt raped. He'll be someone's butt boy, right? For the rest of his life. That is what these government officials are willing to do. They're willing to lie I mean, he could have charged him with a couple of other things, right? Something light, whatever, something that he would plead guilty on a misdemeanor charge. But no, they were throwing the book at him and then lying. I heard lie after lie coming out of these people's faces. It hurts. It hurts me in the heart to think that these people who are entrusted with the public's trust, they've turned it into a political ordeal, right? That they're going to lie and make the Second Amendment irrelevant in this case. They're going to ruin a human being's life because it's politically expedient to them. And it's high profile. Yeah, wearing a body cam, folks, or anytime you're in any altercation, whether you're at a protest or a rally, right? People are putting cameras up in their cars now to film accidents that are happening. But yeah, always, I guess, carry your phone or a camera. And if you get into it, you get pulled over, film it. Someone starts yelling at you, start filming it to protect yourself. If we didn't have all of the footage, evidence of what happened, we would have the verbal testimony only to rely on, folks. Can you imagine that? Take all of that drone footage from the FBI and throw it out. Take all of the various angles and camera angles that people took with their phones and throw it out. Now we're going to rely on the testimony of people who were there and witnessed what was going on. You would have 9-to-1 lunatic, leftist, Antifa scum and their testimony, folks. And then maybe 1 in 10 of people who were, shall we say, like Kyle, in that they were there to keep law and order, to protect businesses and protect people. And I think I'm being generous by saying it was a 9-to-1 ratio. But one of their star witnesses, the star witness for the left, for the lunatic prosecutors, the star witness was the guy who got his bicep blown off. A man who is a convicted felon. A man who had just had his DUI criminal charges dropped miraculously. Right? This same guy, right? A criminal who is engaged and involved in all of these riots because politically he was allied with those who were committing these crimes. Think about it. Law enforcement and DAs, prosecutors, typically look at somebody who's got a criminal record and they'll tell the jury, we can't trust them. They're a prostitute, they're a drug dealer, they're a bank robber. They've been in jail several times. Now we're supposed to believe that because the DA is asking them to take the witness stand, to believe these people, these criminals. But yeah, if we didn't have video footage, guess who would be being put on the witness stand to tell us their version of reality, and the district attorney would make the jury believe that they're reliable, right? All of these other protesters who likely have, I mean, think about it. Kyle shoots 3 people and gets kicked in the head by a 4th, flying kick man. All 4 of them are convicted felons. How many more people that were just watching what was going on were also convicted criminals, right? Was there anyone there other than Kyle who didn't have a criminal record? And we would be expected to trust them. Good thing there was video footage. So in your life, folks, videotaping, audio recording what's going on is a good idea. I'm sure that if I ever get pulled over, I will probably hit the live stream button on my phone and go right to live stream on YouTube. And I'll let the law enforcement officer know and say, hey, Mr. Law Enforcement Officer, I have you on a live stream on YouTube because I want the world to see a proper interaction between a public servant and a member of the public. And so everything you say can and will be heard by half the planet and will be used in the court of law to protect me and you, right? I think that would be damn funny. All right, we got Ungrateful Peasant in the house. He says, this case was not about Kyle. It was about right versus wrong and good versus evil. Either you support burning, looting, pedophilia, lawlessness, or you are for the right to take responsibility for your home. Interesting that you brought this a little further along in the conversation than what we've been talking about lately, which is it's about the Second Amendment, our right to self-defense. That's what the court trial was about. But out here, outside the court, you have people on either side. On the one side, you see this, we'll just say on the patriotic American side, you see this as good versus evil, right? Young, youthful Kyle being run down, kicked, beat on, and then ends up defending his life with a gun. Good versus evil. And he's taking responsibility for his hometown. Right? That's his dad. He's got two hometowns, a mom and a dad. How about that? That's not uncommon these days. Right? It just so happened he crossed a state line. It's okay. I love how they say he crossed a state line, and that is so bad. If you cross a state line to go do what he did, that makes it so much worse. These are the same fucking people who say, well, a borderline is just a line on a map. So illegals should be able to come to America. It's just a line on a political map. But for them, when it comes to prosecuting, Kyle Rittenhouse, they want to say all of a sudden a line on a map makes the crime that much worse. Hypocritical morons. Anyways, back to the bigger picture. Kyle was defending himself. He was defending Kenosha as a town. He was defending businesses. He was helping people, right? And so there's a lot of people that are against what he was doing, defending his home, defending his hometown. And so what they're supporting is burning, looting, murdering. They're supporting people that are doing the burning, looting, murdering, say it was justifiable, right? And so much so they were calling it mostly peaceful protesting. I remember that guy, he has only been beaten in the world of memes by the Let's Go Brandon sports reporter chick who was turning the fuck Joe Biden chant into, oh, see that? They're saying, let's go Brandon. They're chanting that. Yeah, she has become more famous for her role, and God bless her for that one. That was brilliant. But yeah, this really is about good versus evil. It's bigger than just Kyle, and it's bigger than self-defense. And I like your take on this. Should you defend yourself? Yes. Should you defend your town? Yeah, you bet. Should we protect other people? Yes. Should we help other people? Yes. But the political leftists are forced to choose sides. They can't choose the side of right and innocence and self-defense. So they're stuck supporting burning, looting, murdering, being done by, wife beaters, pedophiles, other criminals. That's a hell of a team they picked there. And Kamala Harris, vice president, currently president of the United States, Kamala Harris, she was literally arranging for bail for these people, these BLM and Antifa activists. That's right, the vice president, acting as president, Kamala Harris, actually arranged bail for these people who were burning, looting, and murdering. Arranging bail for them. And encouraged them. She gave aid and comfort to the enemy of the American people who were suffering at the hands of these rioters. And so the political left, those who are Democrats, they have to choose a side. Right? And I think you and I talked about this months ago. I said, you know what? That there's no more debating. There's no more debating. You have to now choose a side. Are you for freedom and liberty? Are you for equal rights? Or are you for state power? Are you for special rights for privileged people, those in power in special groups, right? What they call equity, right? Fairness. Well, it's only fair, right? Fairness is someone's opinion. That's why equity is not law. Equity is something other than law. And that's another discussion altogether. When you're discussing law and cases, the difference between equality and equity. What is equitable is what is fair. What does the law say about fairness? Okay, I'm going to get off on that. We got Jason Walker, though, back. Jason Walker says, hey, Jolene, question for John. His thoughts on the verdict coming out Friday afternoon and what the dumbasses will do over the weekend. Oh, thank you, Jason. The dumbasses. Unfortunately, they're dangerous dumbasses. What I am waiting for, and we had it, right? We've had 2 elected representatives on the national level come out and talk about this case in terms of racism, right? That this is about racism and white supremacy, right? They brought race into it. And a very good friend said, you know what? Only racists bring racism into everything. And it's true. It is true. I don't hear anyone else making this about race other than Democrats. But we're going to find out this weekend. I'm sure maybe Mad Maxine Waters will run her soup cooler. Maybe AOC, you know, the horse face herself, you know, the woman who can eat an apple through a picket fence, AOC, maybe she is going to provoke violence in the name of anti-whiteness and racism and stupidity. And it's really a shame, folks, because where I'm at, I see people of every age, every gender, both of them, every race, and I don't see racism, folks. I don't hear about it, but it's incredible, right? It's incredible how the Democrats in power, they want to make this about racism. All right, we got Jay Clifton says, Biden supporters are like Christmas lights. They all hang together. Half of them don't work, and the other ones aren't too bright. Little Christmas humor for you. Thank you very much, Jay, for that one. I hadn't heard that. I was wondering where that one was going to go, but well done. And we got Uman checking in, and I want to thank Uman again. Thank you, buddy, for all you do in the back. The R Syndicate is the rsyndicate.com is Uman's site for all things prepping, whether it's food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense, how to make a plan. He's got every prepper on there. So if you need to learn more, if you want to find more prepping channels, you go to the rsyndicate.com. But Uman is one of the founding members of the R Syndicate, because everyone was saying it's Q, and there's like, no, R is the real deal. And does anyone even talk about QAnon anymore? I think there's a few people out there who still follow the QAnon thing, but it turns out that the R is the real deal, and getting prepared is the real deal, and understanding that shit has hit the fan is real deal, and we're not going to get through it. There's going to be, you know, Santa Claus that's going to come out of the clouds and fix everything. We're going to have to deal with this ourselves. Anyways, Uman's question, he says, I know we're all expecting trouble tonight, but I wonder if this verdict will give the tots and the bums some pause about mostly peaceful protesting. Now, I'm glad you brought this up, Uman. You are the man, and thank you. I'd like to come and use your garage for the Worldwide Weekly Wrap-Up Uncensored. I'd like to hang out there if I can, if you guys aren't using it. Anyways, thank you very much. Mostly peaceful protesting. Now, we know that the country and the world the new question popped up. Christine Bihana's popped up. Let me back up on Uman's thought there. The world is full of people who are less intelligent than we would like them to be. There are dumbasses on both sides of the aisle. There's evil dumbasses on the left, and there's good-hearted dumbasses on the right. And a lot of people are probably going to interpret this in their uneducated minds as Kyle Rittenhouse was at a protest and shot people. I wonder how many of them are going to think, well, when people start protesting, we're now allowed to shoot them. Hopefully, and I think that it would be a very, very, very small number of people think that. And I think that either a much smaller number will even act on it or think they should act on it. I really, it's possible. What I do think, though, is going to happen, I don't think anyone's just going to show up and start shooting tots and bums. The timeout terrorists, anytime they get hurt, they start screaming for the police, the Antifa guys, a bunch of sissies, right? They want to beat up old women and crippled men and people in wheelchairs and push down the geriatric and attack people, 10 to 1, and then feel pretty macho about themselves. The timeout terrorists. They're probably going to think, well, if we show up and we start this violent stuff again, well, if Kyle Rittenhouse can blow us away, yeah, maybe the police can too. Well, the police always have been able to. And it was only in 2020 and then 2021 parts of it where they're like, you know what, we're not going to use lethal force because every time we do, another riot breaks out. In fact, that's how the riots in Kenosha started. People are like, what is Kenosha, Wisconsin? Well, that was the town where the fellow, and I can't remember his name, was violating the law. He was a criminal. He was a prior convicted criminal with a restraining order, was resisting arrest and reached for a knife and then was finally shot by the police. Did not die, right? That's what started the Kenosha crap. Folks, when you're being arrested, if you decide to resist arrest, there's going to be some hurt put on you. If you have a weapon and reach for a weapon while resisting arrest, they're going to put the hurt on you. It's the choice you make, right? If you don't want to be arrested, fight to the death, but it's probably going to be to the death. I don't recommend that. I will not glamorize or glorify that. But anyways, yeah, there's going to be a lot of people, I think, that won't just show up and think that that's what Kyle did. He just showed up and started shooting people. I think that's the leftists who believe that, yeah, Kyle just showed up and started shooting people, and now he's getting off using his white privilege, right? And it was the white judge that helped him, and the white prosecutors threw the case, and the white defense attorneys, they were using secret hand signs, and the jury was probably all white too. I mean, these people are morons. But I think that the instances of people using weapons in self-defense will probably go up as a result of the Kyle Rittenhouse case. I think that. Because people are going to go see Kyle Rittenhouse was chased by these violent people. He felt his life was threatened, and he used self-defense in a lawful manner, and the jury found it to be lawful. I think the tots and the bums had better think twice about chasing people, about assaulting people, about threatening to kill people. Right? There was also, if you remember in 2020, it was down in, I think, New Mexico. There were a bunch of young punks down there. A bunch of young punks, probably 50 to 75 of them, if I remember correctly, at least the ones that were in camera. And they were trying to tear down a statue. That was when everyone was tearing down statues, all of these young idiots out there. And someone who is of the mental persuasion of conservativeness was there and was trying to stop them. And then he tried leaving. He was like, that's it, I need to leave. The situation's getting out of control. The leftists started chasing him. And he fell down probably 100 yards away and ended up rolling over and pulling his sidearm and shooting someone. I don't think he was ever charged with murder. I can't remember now. Sometimes I've got really bad CRS these days. My head is so full of all the SHTF crap that's going on. In fact, I found my notepads. They're back there in the corner. My notepads from the first year of SHTF and Cerveza Bug. Remember, every day I had my that yellow notepad taking notes. I got a year's worth of notes day to day on the shit that was going on. And that was one of those days. Anyways, yeah. I think a lot of people are going to take the law into their own hands because there are fewer police out there. There are fewer paramedics out there. There are fewer EMTs out there. There are fewer firemen out there because, they don't want the Jim Jones juice. They don't want it. They're not going to take it. Wouldn't be prudent. And so people are going to have to defend themselves. And we've talked about that in SHTF. What happens when the police aren't around? Like my friend in law enforcement, Chris, back in California, sheriff's deputy. I said, dude, what do we do? He says, you're on your own. I said, what? He says, you're on your own. And people would call the sheriff's department. They would call police department, and police departments around the country in 2020 would tell people, we can't come to you. We have too many calls. That's if you got them to even answer the phone. 911 was, got a busy signal for a couple of months. When you're on your own, who's going to stick up for you? Who's going to look out for you? Who is on your side? It's going to be you, yourself, and I. Right? So this Kyle Rittenhouse case is really critical because it's going to tell people, hey, look, if you feel your life is threatened, right? If you think you're going to die, if you're being beat, you have a right to defend yourself and use lethal force. Yeah, the tots and the bums are going to think about it a little bit. Does that mean they're going to stop, or does that mean they're just going to get really sneaky and tricky? Oh, yeah. And we're going to end the show today, at the end of the week here, with Christine B. Hanna, who writes and says, John, is anyone aware that Maxwell, that would be Jizzy Maxwell's trafficking trial started today? No one is aware of that. That was big news a while ago, out of the news cycle. Jizzy Maxwell, I love calling her Jizzy, was Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey, I didn't hang myself, Epstein. That was his partner, his longtime confidant, lover, and who knows what else. Some say that she was his control. Anyways, her trial starts today for trafficking, sex trafficking. That was a really big deal when it was happening, when that first started. But where are we today in SHTF? I think most people look at what's going on with Jizzy Maxwell and go, who gives a shit? We got a lot bigger fish to fry than someone who is trying to convince women to become basically, I guess, sex slaves. That whole branding thing, and that one little actress out of California who turned state's evidence. There's some weird shit going on, yeah. But it's like, well, that's what we got rather than Pizzagate. Remember Pizzagate? Remember Pizzagate? There's all kinds of shit going on, folks. Again, in a given day, I've got 50 to 100 news articles that I could talk about. I whittle it down to somewhere between 20 and 30. And then as the show develops, I talk about them and I never finish them off. And they just get swept off to the side and we start again. And we do it every day. I want to support or thank you guys for supporting what I do here. I've gotten some really nice PayPal donations for the Christmas season. I appreciate that. Keeping the lights on, keeping the pantry well stocked with a variety of spam is terrific. We've got some new suppliers coming on board with us here at the Prepared Mind. We'll be talking about them in the coming weeks. We've got a meat supplier we're waiting on an answer for some delicious grass-fed beef that I've been sampling. We've got some other prepping items that are going to be tested, and I think we're going to have others test them as well and then refer back to them. Folks, it's exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting. Don't let them beat you with attrition. Don't let them take you down. Get some rest and know that I'm here every day. Not 24/7, not quite that much, but I'm here every day in front of the camera, in front of the computers, working on this stuff. But even I need a little break here and there. Maybe I'll take a little break this weekend, but I'll definitely be back Sunday. Well, I got to do the Worldwide Weekly Wrap-Up Saturday, so I am here every day. And I want to thank you guys for supporting our efforts, making sure that we're spreading the word. And that is your job, folks. Spread the word on this. Kyle Rittenhouse acquitted on all counts. You have a right to defend yourself. And folks, chance favors the prepared mind. Is yours. Godspeed. Semper Fi.